afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councilman Greenlee.
I think you know how this works. You know, we got your full testimony, and you can summarize however you see fit.
Okay, I'll summarize it.
Okay.
And members of City Council, with me here today is Kellen White, First Deputy City Controller. Today I'm pleased to provide testimony on the Controller's Office's Fiscal Year 2020 operating budget proposed at $9.4 million. As the independent financial watchdog for the City of Philadelphia, the Office of the City Controller's mission is to promote the effective and efficient operation of Philadelphia government by identifying cost savings, recommending best practices in modernization, and exposing fraud and mismanagement. The office is committed to transparency, accountability, and good government. Since taking office in January 2018, our office has worked diligently to improve the operations of Philadelphia city government using financial audits, performance audits, and special investigations. We recently released the departmental audit for fiscal year 18, and we also are about to release the internal controls audit in June of this year. In conjunction with the departmental audit, we also released our first exempt employee diversity review. And we did this for exempt employees to provide a baseline understanding of whether the city's exempt workers reflect the diversity of the city's population, and will serve as a point of comparison for next year's deeper dive on departments' hiring practices. I want to note that the review showed the Controller's Office exempt staff to be 54% minority. When looking at the office overall, including civil service employees, our staff is 55% minority and 53% female. While we've made strides to improve diversity among our staff and are committed to following diverse hiring best practices, there is more work to be done. We're also focusing on contracting and diversity in contracting. We've raised the percentage of diverse contracts from 2% before I took office to 23% so far this year, and our goal for 2020 is 25%. In addition to the recurring audits like the departmental audit and internal controls reports, we also conduct performance audits. We released the audit on the city's sexual misconduct, policies, procedures, and payouts last July, and we're currently in the final stages of 2 more performance audits, behavioral health and the Philadelphia Parking Authority. We'll also begin in early summer to conduct several audits on the Office of Information and Technology, OIT, related to required audits for financial controls, as well as an application review of One Philly, which is required as part of the 19 financial audit. And we'll also conduct a performance audit, which was requested by City Council, related to IT capital project management and IT security risks. In addition to auditing, my office also has a strong investigation unit. And we investigate numerous types of issues of fraud against the city, and our investigations unit received 220 complaints in calendar year 2018, which is my first year in office, up from 67 complaints the year before. Lastly, I want to discuss the work of the Finance, Data, and Policy team, which conducts research and policy analysis in my office. We've released an analysis of the 10-year tax abatement and the Office of Property Assessments, the accuracy of the Office of Property Assessments annual assessments. I said assessments a lot of times there. Our findings, like those in City Council's report, show significant shortcomings, including inaccuracies in many neighborhoods and a lack of transparency about its data, methodology, and processes. The unit also supports my work as a pension board trustee. In February, we released a report on the state of the pension fund, finding that while important improvements have been made in recent years to support the health of the fund, the rate of return is still too optimistic. As City Controller, I am committed to transparency and making data more accessible to the public. Over the last year, my office has published various data releases, from information on the city's cash position to revenue and expenditure data for the city's beverage tax. These data sets are updated quarterly. We encourage the public to reach out to our office to tell us about the data they most want to see. It is my goal that the Controller's Office is seen as a resource as well as a watchdog, providing valuable information and audits that help move the city forward. This concludes my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for all your office does. Mr. White there, I know I've interacted with Tommy St. Hill and others, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's see, just a couple of questions the Council President has here. On page 13 of your budget detail, you show 4 contracts for auditing service of $150,000 and $75,000 with no vendor listed. Do you know the contractors you have that will perform this work?
That's for fiscal 20, hold on one second. What you're referring to is the placeholder we have for various audits we will be performing. We haven't done the selection process for that. So that is the IT audits, the outside audit firm, which will do the IT audits, as well as 1 or 2 other special audits.
So no vendor was listed because you haven't selected them yet? Is that what you're saying?
Right, we haven't selected them yet.
Oh, okay, I got you. And according to most recent figures that you provided, your office has 7 vacancies. Does that still exist, or are you planning to fill those vacancies?
We are planning to fill all the vacancies we have. We are in the process of hiring for the civil service examinations for auditors, and we're at various stages of that process. I can have someone give more information if you're interested, but we are working to fill those.
And most of those are auditors? Is that the
That's
spots?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't think right now of any open exempt position we have.
And let me ask you one more thing. I see in your testimony you highlight the diversity of your staff, 55% minority, 53% female. We talked on the side here a little bit about diversity. What recruiting methods do you use to have that, to ensure a qualified group of employees, and diverse and qualified group?
Yeah, well, we do a few different things, actually. So for the exempt staff, when I took office, and Kellen White was very involved in the transition efforts, so we made a concerted effort to recruit widely for the positions we had available so that we would get diverse candidates to interview. And that's part of what's considered to be the best practices for hiring diverse staff, which is getting diverse candidates into interview and then having a diverse hiring panel. So
Go
those
as
are
wide
things,
as possible, in other words, right?
yeah,
Go widely possible.
yeah. I mean, really, you know, it works to increase diversity. I mean, we still have work to do, but it definitely does work. And then on the civil service side, we post widely, and we're currently in discussions to increase outreach to looking at sort of the low percentage of Hispanic workforce that we have. So we're actively looking at where our weaknesses are in terms of diversity and seeing what we should be doing in recruitment.
To improve. Okay, great. All right, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Councilman Dom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councilman.
Just a couple different questions.
Sure.
Do you agree with the administration's analysis on the pension that we're going to be at about 80% funding, I think, in either 2029 or 2030?
Well, that analysis assumes the rate of return that they're assuming, which I believe is too high. So we did research that showed that given what we're invested in, that we should have an assumed rate of return of about 6.8%. And right now, it was just reduced to 7.55 from 7.6. But I think it's unlikely to make have an assumed rate of return, or to make that assumed rate of return over time.
If it was 6.8, does that make the years maybe 2033 or 2032? Like, how far out does that push the point where we get to 80%?
I would have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure offhand.
If you could let us know. I just want to see what
absolutely.
a worst case is, because we want to make sure we take care of that.
Yeah,
issue.
absolutely. And we've also recommended stress testing, because that's an area that needs to get strengthened.
So, okay, I have some series of questions around the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, the CAFR.
Okay.
And the CAFR, of course, is the set of financial statements covering all the city's financial activity. And in your opinion, why is the CAFR important?
I'm sorry, why is the CAFR?
Important.
Well, the CAFR is the audited financial statements. They need to accurately show the financial position of the city. So it's very important.
And so, from my understanding, the city's $12 billion in assets, $18 billion in liabilities, and this is that financial report that kind of documents a lot of this information and the status of it, including whether things are reconciled or not reconciled.
Yeah, it's the annual financial statements.
And the other report is the, I guess, Schedule of Financial Assistance, the CFA. And that's a report of all funds that the city gets from federal and state authorities. And is that roughly in excess of $2.3 billion?
On the CFA, I don't know offhand what the number is, but yeah, the city gets grants from state and federal sources, and the CFA is the federal grants.
So my information says that we've received reimbursements or grants of about $2.3 billion, and that CFA would cover that, analyzing those grants and what occurred with them. Does that sound accurate to you?
Yeah, the CFA is the statement of all the grants that we receive, yes.
And so then, what is the single audit, and what role does the CAFR and CFA play in completing that single audit?
So the single audit is the audit of the CFA, and I can have my deputy if you want to explain more, but it's the list of all of the grants is on this CFA. And then my audit team goes through it to audit, and there's a threshold for what programs are tested to make sure that the city is following the proper grant requirements, grant rules, that the city is in compliance with federal requirements, and then any weaknesses in compliance are reported on that single audit. And that is put together with the CAFR as well as the report on internal controls. And those three audits are put together and submitted to the federal government, which is required by every municipality.
And so what is the deadline for completing the single audit?
The deadline is March 31st, I believe.
So would that be a month ago?
Yeah, so the city has, and I know what note you're referring to, the Controller's Office, and we have noted that, and that's why it's a note in the CAFR this year, is that Finance Department is very late in submitting the information for my office to audit, which is a concern.
And what's, in your opinion, what's the potential downsides if we don't meet those deadlines?
They're significant. We are considered what's called a high-risk auditee, which the school district is actually a low risk. But because we are, we need to do certain things, and not meeting the requirements make us vulnerable to losing federal grant money. And I have sent a letter over to the finance director a month or two ago, copying the mayor, saying that, trying to elevate the issue and say this is a big deal, and finance needs to make sure that this is given to our office and given in an accurate fashion. And this is something that I think is so important and often overlooked, which is internal controls and sort of the backbone of financial management. And that's something I'm pushing on. So I'm glad you're bringing it up.
And this is for fiscal year 18?
That's correct.
And the fiscal year 17 audit, how long did it take us to do that one?
It was very late. I mean, it was very late coming to us from finance and then to be submitted as well.
And what does that usually cost to do that audit?
It's done by our auditors, so I can't give a calculation. It's part of the rotation of audits that's done every year, but there is importance that it be done in a more timely manner.
Let me just make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying that if we miss these deadlines, and these are federal monies, that the federal government could theoretically not fund or suspend our funding because we missed the deadlines?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. I have another question. The audit reimbursement grant, it's listed as a local non-governmental grant in the amount of roughly $400,000. Do you know what that's for?
Yeah, where are you looking off of right now?
It's in the audit, it says, it was one of the line items, audit reimbursement grant. You can get back to me if you're not.
Okay, yeah, I'll
clear
get
on
back to
it.
you.
Okay. And then, in the school district single audit and the annual.
Oh, I'm sorry. In the actual budget, in my budget? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant in the CAFR. Yeah, that is the work that we do the school district audit work, and they reimburse our office for the work every year.
Okay, so the school district,
Let me just pull up the budget to make sure I'm answering the question correctly. Hold on.
Mr. Chairman, we okay on time? Okay.
No? Where's the budget? Oh, here. What page is he on? Oh, yeah. Okay, yes, that's the grant money. So it's the carry forward from the 19 money and then added to the 2020 money. So that's the money we'll be using. It's from the school district, and we'll be using for the outside IT audits.
Okay. And then in the school district single audit and the annual CIFA that you posted on your website, when was that completed?
The school district ones are done according to their deadlines. I would have to get back to you on the exact date that we...
So they're in compliance?
Yes, they are. And actually, the school district, I mean, in their internal controls, for example, last year they had no material weaknesses and no significant deficiencies, as opposed to the city's 2 material weaknesses and 8 significant deficiencies. And they're in good financial... Their controls are well managed at the school district.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. The school district is complying with the CIFA?
Yes.
And so why is the school district and your office able to comply, but the city's finance office and your office is not able to comply?
Well, it's the information that we need to get from the finance office. So the school district gives the controller's office the information in a timely manner for us to do the CIFA.
And what do you think is the problem in getting this resolved? Because it makes me a little uncomfortable giving the federal government...
I would say that that's a conversation that is on the finance director and the accounting function within that. I think that what the recommendation that has been included in various controller's office audits is that the staffing levels are too low in the accounting office of the finance department, and the technology is too old. And the combination of those two things is creating many issues. And it goes beyond the CIFA. It goes into, errors and all types of issues. So I think it's on both of those things. The school district, from my understanding with the auditors in my office, the school district has maintained good staffing levels and is in better shape on internal controls and financial management.
Let me ask you this question. We're all in this together, okay? Mm-hmm. Is there any way that through the cooperation of your office and the finance directors, we can get this resolved and get it filed so we don't have an issue? My goal is to get this resolved and get it filed.
Yeah, I think that would be my goal as well. I think that there needs to be a commitment to fixing it, and then I think it's completely resolvable. Absolutely.
And what do you think the city needs to do to make sure this single audit is completed in the future prior to federal deadlines? Are you saying it's staffing issues, basically?
I think it's staffing issues and technology issues, but I think both of those, it's solvable. It's completely solvable.
Okay. Well, that's enough on that one. I do have another question for you,
Sure.
though. And by the way, I did send you a letter and you responded, so thank you.
Yes, of course.
And I had asked you to audit the prison budget. And I guess I asked you to audit the budget because I know that they did do a report, but I'm still baffled by the fact that in 2015, the budget for the prisons around 367 million, 8,900 people there, and was costing us 44,000. And now the budget's similar, and it's costing us 84,000. And I know that the district attorney was in last week and did say that we should see savings in this prison budget. Maybe not to the level of a 47% prison reduction budget savings, but 15 to 20% would be a lot of money on a $380 million all fringes in type budget.
Right.
So I'm hopeful you're going to do that audit, and you're going to find us some really good money and make it more efficient.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I do think that the numbers are concerning. So my office has been going back and forth with prisons to schedule a meeting, and also they've sent in a performance audit that they say they've done, which I'll go through. But I share your concern.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the good work you're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you all very much. Okay?
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. If I could ask the folks in the library just to hold on for a minute. Stay tuned for a second, okay?